Welcome to Back to My Garden. Discover your passion for gardening. Here's Dave Ledoux.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world when you listen to this. I'm Dave Ledoux, and welcome to another episode of Back to My Garden. Tremendous guest for you today, folks. Tracy loves that through gardening, she knows exactly where her food comes from. She and her family left the rat race in the big city and moved to their own little slice of paradise, where they grow their own food, raise chickens, bees, push-me-pull-yous, and enjoy the fresh air of homesteading life. We have a ton to discuss. Joining us from South Carolina, Tracy Fredrychowski. Welcome to the show, Tracy.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It is my pleasure to share a little bit of our world with your listeners today.
I gave you a brief introduction, and I want to get to know you better. And our listeners want to hear your story. So, Tracy, sit back, relax, take a minute or two, and share with us a little bit about your background and how did you get into gardening?
Okay. Well, we all hate to talk about ourselves, but what led us here really has an impact on what we left. And my husband and I both owned a web hosting company. We had, 500 clients. We were on call 24/7. We lived in the city, had an office of employees, and were absolutely miserable. We had both grown up on farms in Pennsylvania, moved to South Carolina, moved our business to South Carolina, and moved right in the heart of the city, about 15 miles east of the state capital, which is Columbia, South Carolina. So we lived in a little town called Lexington, but it was growing by leaps and bounds. Our nearest neighbor was about 30 feet from our front door. You could almost hear the toilet flush in their house, in our house. So it was very limiting to us. We thought we wanted a successful career, but we found out we absolutely hated it. So after 10 years, we put our house up for sale in the worst economic downslide there was, about, 2009, 2008, something like that, and our house sold in 6 weeks. So we really felt that it was God's answer to us that we were not supposed to be doing what we were doing. So we sold our business, we sold our house, we didn't have a place to go. We did find 20 acres out in the country, but it was in the middle of a field. It never had a house. It was just plain land that had never been worked. So what we did have is we had a fifth wheel. So we took that fifth wheel and we put all of our belongings in storage. We moved into the fifth wheel in the middle of that 20 acres and sat there for about 3 or 4 months and said, okay, now what do we do? We didn't know anything about gardening in South Carolina. We knew how to garden in Pennsylvania, where where we were raised, but our fathers did the gardening. We were introduced to gardening from weeding at an early age. They would plant it, but it would be the children's responsibility to keep it weeded. So all I knew about gardening is it produced a lot of weeds. I did help my mother in the canning process. So, from the garden to the kitchen, I knew the process. But doing it on our own, we had never done that before. So, like I said, we sat in the middle of this 20 acres for about, 3, 4, 5 months and said, okay, where do we start? We knew that we weren't quite ready to build a house yet. So we dug a water well, we got the septic in, and we still, all right, should we plant a garden? So that's the first place we started. And from there, that's been about 6, 7 years now. Now we have a huge kitchen garden that I plant all of our herbs in, and I experiment with a lot of salves and alternative medicines, simple medicines for our family, bee stings and, healing salves and stuff like that. So we have the kitchen garden, we have a plot garden, we pretty much grow all of our own vegetables. I probably can somewhere between 300 and 400 quarts of produce a year, so we're pretty much self-sufficient when it comes to our jellies and our jams and our salsas and spaghetti sauce, and we even can some meat. But we also have gardening to the extent of we grow field corn for our We grind it for our chickens. We grind it for our pigs when we raise those every other year. We have cows and alpacas. So we're doing 3 types of gardening: kitchen gardening, preserving gardening, and then we have our field gardening, which is, the field corn. And this year we're trying our hand at sunflowers because I'd like to produce some sunflower oil. So we've come a full circle. Like I said, we were raised in the country. We learned our gardening from our parents. We moved to the city, found out that we were absolutely miserable, found 20 acres in the middle of nowhere, and then had to start all over from scratch. So I never dreamed that, being 53, I'm 53, I never dreamed that we would completely start over our life as we have, but I have learned a lot along the way. I've done a lot of things wrong. Well, we have, not just me. My husband and I have done a lot of things wrong in our gardening. And through that process, we have learned a great deal. We have learned to rely on experts. We have learned to talk to our parents. Thank goodness our fathers are both still alive, and we can pull a lot of information from them. So we've learned a lot. We've made a lot of mistakes, and that's where we're at today.
Tracy,
wow.
As a podcaster, I'm sitting here completely freaked out because we'll never fit this in one episode. For those of you listening in your cars and jogging on your iPads, Tracy and I are going to talk for the next 20 minutes. I don't know about what, because there's a million topics on my notes, but you got to go to her blog. It's more than a blog. It's a resource site. It's a YouTube channel. It's a blueprint. It's www.OurSimpleHomestead.com. Now, for you ladies listening who are married, go drag your husbands in to listen to this, because how on earth did you stay married living in a trailer?
Well, my children, my adult children say that, oh, Mom, I could have never done that. How did you do that? And believe it or not, we lived in that fifth wheel for 2 years. And there is a part of me that misses it. Believe it or not, I miss it. I am all about simplifying my life, Dave. And it was about as simple as you could get. Showering in about a 3x3 box, doing laundry. Laundry was a challenge. Thank goodness we had built a little 12x12 like storage shed, and my husband had put the washing machine in the storage shed. And then, of course, I line dry everything here anyway. But that was probably a challenge, because on the days that it wasn't sunny out or the wind wasn't blowing, but yet my husband needed work clothes, that little 20-foot trailer became an indoor drying rack. So, the heater had to go up. We had a little space heater. It was a challenge. But there still are days today that I think, oh, why did we build a house? We should have just built a little one of those little tiny houses, because even though we live very simple right now, it was even simpler then. And thank goodness my husband and I have a very, very, very strong marriage and love to be with one another, because we were right on top of one another 24/7. And thank goodness he still works away from the farm, that he could, get out of the house or get out of the farm, away from that trailer, for his 10, 12 hours a day. But I did stay married to him. I think it made us stronger. My kids have a new appreciation for their mother. They just are still all in awe at me that, oh, Mom, I could have never done that. I could have never done that. But it taught me to be resourceful. Going from, and I know we're probably going to get off the gardening topic a little bit, Dave, but I think people need to understand this, that going from that fast-paced, high-stressed job that we both had owning our own business to living in the middle of the country to hear nothing but the rooster crowing and the birds chirping and watching our beehives grow and learning how to garden all over again, it probably saved us years of our health. because I know that I wasn't sleeping, I was having stomach problems. The stress really gets you. And even if you can't leave the city, there are so many things that a person can do right there in the city or in the suburb that can simplify their life, that they can grow their own food. You know, a lot of subdivisions even allow you to have chickens now. So there are so many things that a person can do. They don't have to move to the country. They don't have to go to the extremes that my husband Craig and I did. There are a lot of things that people can do right in their own home to simplify their life, to grow some of their own food, to learn where their food's coming from, to, you know, go to farmers markets and join the CSAs where you can get local produce brought in or find local produce, and you're not relying on those big box stores. There's a lot of things people can do to actually take care of themselves. And pretty much that's what our Simple Homestead is all about. I wanted to show our story and how we changed our life and how we added years and years to our life just by letting go some of that stress. But what I hear the most through the blog is we can't do that. We can't leave the city. There's no way that we can buy 20 acres. What can we do in our subdivision? What can I do in my backyard? So, container gardening, raised beds, knowing where your food comes from, not relying on Walmart to go buy your tomatoes that were grown in Mexico or wherever they were from, or even knowing where your meat is coming from. You know, some of the meat that comes through the stores, you have no idea where that meat is coming from, and hopefully it's USA meat, it's USA food, but again, you don't know. That's probably the biggest joy and the biggest reward I get is knowing that we are eating our own produce. We are raising our own pork and beef. You know, my husband is an avid hunter, so, you know, we can our own deer meat. You know, we pressure cook our own deer meat every year. So we raise our own meat chickens. We have our own eggs. We know where all that comes from. But if you can't do all of that, there are so many people in probably your outlying area that can provide you fresh produce, can provide you fresh eggs. And I don't know about you, Dave, but if you've ever had a store-bought egg and then a farm-fresh egg, there's no comparison in the flavor, the taste, the looks, just knowing how healthy that is for you because those chickens were raised, hopefully free-ranged. All of our chickens are free-ranged. So there are so many things that I can help other people learn how to do right in their own area. And I know I'm getting off the gardening topic, Dave. I'm so sorry about that.
Well, there's so much to cover because
I know.
And here's the thing, you just kind of glossed over it, but you never pressure cooked when you lived in the city and ran your internet company, did you?
No, I never canned a thing. Never, ever canned a
thing.
I did as a child. You know, my mother, us girls, I had two sisters, so us three girls were required. That was our job. Our requirement was to weed the garden, help, my father bring in the produce, and then it was us girls' job to help my mother can that produce. So I knew how to do all that, but I didn't do all that.
I don't know about you, but the old pressure cookers with those big kind of screw handles that would blow up if you did it wrong and kill everyone in the kitchen.
Yes,
I know it's not like that now, but still, that's impressive.
Well, thank goodness my parents are still living and Craig's parents are still living. So we relied on them a lot to say, okay, help us. And of course, they're 600 miles away. They still live in Pennsylvania. We live in South Carolina. So, the only help we could get from them was over the phone. So we learned a lot on our own. We've learned a lot. And even though my children, we have two adult children, our adult children are very career-oriented right now, but they're in their late 20s, early 30s. But I can see them. We provide them with eggs, and we provide them with fresh pork and fresh beef from our farm. They don't like to buy that in the store now. And now I see my son going, hey, Mom, and they live in a townhouse. Hey, Mom, what can we grow in our backyard? So, we're already building portable raised beds that when they go buy their own home, because they're just renting now, when they go buy their own home, they can take those beds with them. So we're building them. My husband and my son are building raised beds that he can disassemble and take with them when they buy their own home next year. So I can see a little bit of what we're doing wearing off on my children, and that is just wonderful. And our grandchildren, we have 3 grandchildren, and it's a big thing for them to come to the farm and, gather eggs and feed the alpacas and help me with the spinning wheel when I'm spinning fiber. So just passing some of that knowledge, our parents passed it on to us, and now we're passing it on to our children. And thank goodness Craig and I are still young enough that, we're passing some of that stuff on to our grandchildren, the love for being outside, the love for helping us in the garden. There is nothing that my one granddaughter loves to do more than to go into the garden and eat fresh peas off the vine. In the spring, they'll come, okay, what can we eat out of the garden today, Grandma? And they'll pop cherry tomatoes in their mouth, or they'll pick green beans. And I can guarantee you, a lot of their classmates in school don't have that opportunity. So I'm very fortunate that I can pass that on to my children and my grandchildren, and they know where their food comes from, because a lot of children don't know where their food comes from today. They think that all their food comes from Walmart, and really, where does our food come from? And that's what I want the younger generation to know, that where is their food coming from, and can I provide my family with the food that they need? One of the things that I say a lot through our Facebook account and on the website is, if the big box stores close tomorrow, could you provide for your family? That's what I want to teach people, how to provide for their family if the big box store closed tomorrow.
I have a friend who has a 12-year-old son, and he said, "Where does cheese come from?" Mm-hmm. And the kid thought it came in, prepackaged slices. He didn't know cheese came from cows. Right. And my friend realized, his kid is not an idiot. It's because he had never shown him. He had never seen a cow. He was 12 years old. And so it kind of gave him a new mission to get the kid acquainted with how the reality of where our food comes from. I wanted to ask you, last year, your gardens, plural, what brought you joy? What grew? And was there anything that frustrated you or was stubborn?
Well, not so much last year. I'm going to go with the frustration part.
Okay.
Not so much last year. But when we first came here to this land that had never been worked, I think it used to be farmland years and years and years ago, but it has not been worked in probably 20, 30 years since the farmer that owned it had retired. So, silly us, not really owning our own land, this much land before, we tried to plant here without getting our soil tested, without amending our soil. When I grew up on a farm in Pennsylvania, we had cows. So my dad would, every fall or during the winter, he would be out there with a manure spreader, spreading manure on the garden. Well, we didn't have cows right then, so I knew I couldn't do that, but I never really thought about it. All I knew is, okay, what I thought, we just need to till up this land, plant our seeds, and things will grow. Well, our frustration for 2 years was, why can't we get anything to grow? Why is everything just not producing? And, of course, the sandy soil here in South Carolina compared to the rich, dark, black, healthy soil in Pennsylvania that seemed to have a lot of nutrients, but little did I know my dad was spreading manure and liming and doing whatever he had to do to that soil. We lost the connection somewhere along the line. So after 2 years, we had a farmer friend come and visit us that owns a big farm, and the first thing we were saying, how much trouble we were having with growing things here in South Carolina, and he said to me, "Tracy, did you test your soil?" I said, "What do you mean test your soil?" So he put me on to the area extension office. He said every county probably has an extension office, and they will test your soil. Lo and behold, 10 miles away is an extension office from here on the farm. I took, stopped and got the bags, tested it, and we just had no pH in our soil whatsoever. So that's what our challenge was, and that was one of the things that we learned, like the stupidity thing that, I can't believe that we tried to garden without getting our soil tested. So when anyone ever talks to me about their garden, the very first thing, after they say, well, I don't have a green thumb, I can't grow anything. Well, the number one question I ask them through trial and error is, have you tested your soil? And have you taken to heart what that test came back to and amended your soil properly? Once we started to amend our soil and add the nutrients that it was lacking, we can grow just about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that we grow really good here that I can't give away fast enough is watermelons. We just have an abundance. They love that hot South Carolina sun. They seem to do well. We don't get a lot of rain here in the Midlands where I live. We do have to water our garden every day, but we grow some mammoth watermelons, and I can't give them away fast enough.
Which of your livestock eat them? Do they? I call them push me, pull yous.
Oh, yeah, the pigs will eat them. The chickens love watermelons. We'll crack those watermelons open and leave them for the chickens, and probably 2 hours, they are picked clean. Now, right now, we only have 10 free-range chickens, but we have 18 on order, and they should be delivered next Monday. And all of those chickens will be free range too. And the bad part of having free range chickens is we have to fence in our garden because they tend to like the garden. The chickens tend to love the garden, so we do have to fence in our garden. But the pigs and the chickens will eat the excess watermelons when I just can't give any away to the neighbors and the kids. People want to buy them. They'll often say, well, here, I'll pay you for them. It's like, no, I just get a joy out of just giving them away. And,
nice.
And that's pretty much what we do with them.
Tracy, I glanced at the clock and our time is flying by.
Okay.
Now is the time in the show where we play a game called 5 Quick Questions.
Okay.
This is your chance to share your wisdom and experience with novice rookie gardeners. Are you ready to play?
I'm ready to play.
Question number 1. Have you ever made a mistake in the garden that you can look back now and laugh?
Yes, I have, and it had to be not getting our soil tested.
Excellent. I guess your soil was really acidic.
Oh, it's horrible. It was horrible. We had, Craig does all the, soil amending, and I couldn't read those reports that the extension office gave us back, but he knows exactly. He's got it at a fine science right now, but that was our biggest issue is we didn't take the time to get our soil tested before we started to garden.
Good wisdom. Question 2. This will give us some personal insight into you. Let's say you were only allowed to grow one plant next season. What plant would you personally just have to grow?
Tomatoes.
Okay, good. Do you have a particular favorite?
I would say we grow Rutgers.
Okay.
Rugters. I can't remember I think that's what it is, but we grow those the best. It's a just all around heavy duty, always a good producer for us.
And you do a lot of canning with those salsas and stuff?
We do.
I love it, yeah. Okay. I did 100 quarts last year with our, I guess we use metric, but 100 jars, so that was our new record.
Oh, wow. And that's I probably do that much, if not more, tomatoes, between stewed tomatoes and sauce, spaghetti sauce and salsa. So I would say tomatoes would be the one plant that I just could not do without.
Yeah. Nice. Do you do any, hot stuff?
The only hot stuff, and I know we probably don't have time, but I'll give you one quick thing. I tried to do pizza sauce last year, and Craig was helping me, and I asked him he said, okay, I'm home for the day. What can I do to help you? I said, here, you can put these seasonings in this pizza sauce. So he was reading the recipe, and the recipe called for 2 teaspoons of hot red pepper flakes. He put in 2 tablespoons, and I wondered why the pizza sauce was so hot. So we tracked it back. But that pizza sauce can't be used as pizza sauce because it's too hot, so we use it as a nacho dip sauce, the sauce, because it's too hot for pizza sauce.
I thought you were going to say paint remover and bug repellent. Yeah.
I would like to use it as that, but Craig still eats it as the nacho. He uses it on his nachos.
Hey, and when it's wintertime, just a little scoop will do you.
Yeah, exactly.
Question 3 is internet stuff. I want everybody listening to go to your website at www.oursimplehomestead.com. Connect with Tracy. Tracy, do you have one or two favorite gardening websites or resources that you could share?
I do. The Farmer's Almanac has always come through for us, so I use that particular website quite often. And I use the Clemson Extension Office website, but every community has a community extension office. I would suggest the listeners to find their extension office because they're going to give you particular garden advice for your particular area. So, like I said, I use the Clemson Extension office. They give me, soil testing and growing seasons and what grows best in my area. So that would be a website I use. But again, I would suggest your readers find their own extension office.
Excellent. Yeah, don't try to grow bananas where it snows. It doesn't matter how hard you try.
Or peaches, or peaches or something like that, right.
You're in peach country?
We are in peach country.
Nice.
We sure are. In fact, we planted 12 peach trees last year. So.
Yeah, very good. Question 4 is, do you have a favorite gardening book?
Oh, and they're all Southern gardening books.
Good,
Southern Living puts out a South Carolina gardening book that I carry around as a Bible. So again, it's specific to my southern growing area, and especially since I grew up in the north where it was cold and there's 3 feet of snow and 27 below zero right now. So I really had to learn a lot about the area that we moved to here in South Carolina. So again, that Southern Living Gardener's Bible is my choice.
I once drove through Erie, Pennsylvania in February.
Almost
didn't get out.
Yeah, Erie, Pennsylvania. I lived 20 miles south of Erie in a little town called Waterford. But, they call Erie dreary Erie because the sun never shines there.
If you draw a line straight across Lake Erie, I'm on the opposite side. I can almost see you if the earth wasn't round.
So I'm on the north shore. You're pretty cold right now, too.
I have right now on the ground 3 feet of snow, and yesterday we broke a 50-year record for cold.
My parents live outside of Erie, and they have 3 feet of snow on the ground, and I think she said it was 20-something below.
Yeah.
Was it really 20 below?
Yeah.
I don't know. She's older, and they don't go out of the house right now. So all I know is what she's reading on the thermometer out the window. But it's about 33, 34 here right now in South Carolina, and there is no snow on the ground.
For anyone listening who does live in a 4-season climate, I, being the husband, resisted for years, but my wife invested in some grow lights, and we set up a little basement garden on an old pool table. Uh-huh. And yesterday we got our first tomato turning red. In the middle of February, we have lettuce ready to go. We have some green peppers ready to go. And it just adds to your sanity level when it's this dreary out.
Oh, what a wonderful thing to do. Oh, what a wonderful thing.
As a tip, the bulbs have a certain number of hours that you can get growth from them. And even though the bulbs will still turn on and look super bright, whatever the waves are that makes the plants grow diminishes. And we had these straggly, spindly little plants last year, and my wife says the bulbs are no good. So what are you talking about? There's another 3,000 hours left in these bulbs. And I recanted, and sure enough, the minute we changed the bulbs, everything dramatically grew. So use your eyes and common sense, not what's stamped on a cardboard box.
Wow, isn't that amazing? I never knew anything like that. I didn't know grow lights had like a growing period where they stopped growing things. Yeah. So that is great information.
Yeah. Question 5. We have a brand new year ahead of us, Tracy. What are you moving into your 7th year, 8th year?
Yeah, something like that.
Is there anything you've never grown that you would love to experiment with?
South Carolina is not known for apples, believe it or not. I know it's not, typical garden, but we are trying really hard to grow an orchard. And we live in an area in South Carolina where apples tend to need a colder climate, and we're really hot here. So we're right now in the process of trying to find a couple apple trees that will grow here. So wish us luck. I would really love to have apple trees here on the farm. If we can only grow peaches and plums, then we can only grow peaches and plums. But I just can't believe there's not a variety of apples out there that won't grow in South Carolina. So that is our challenge this year, is to research even more and try to find a couple apple trees that will do well here in our area.
So let's use the wisdom of crowds. If you're listening and you know anything or anyone who has resources of growing apples in South Carolina, reach out to Tracy.
That would be wonderful.
If you have an interest in alpacas or beekeeping or chickens or gardening or homesteading, reach out to Tracy at www.oursimplehomestead.com. All your social media links are up there too, right?
They sure are.
Nice. Tracy, the time has flown by. You've been an incredible guest. I want to invite you to have the last word to our listeners today. We're now in 63 countries, which is unbelievable. So picture the whole world of gardeners all around our little planet is listening to you. Can you leave us with a note of encouragement or a pearl of wisdom?
I will. There's a saying that I love to pass on, and it says, gardening is all about enjoying the smell of things growing in the soil, getting dirty without feeling guilty, and generally just taking time to soak up a little peace and serenity.
Gardening is about getting dirty without feeling guilty.
Guilty.
That's the Twitter quote. That's going on Twitter.
It is. It's getting dirty without feeling guilty. Gardening is all about getting dirty and not feeling guilty. I remember going to church one Sunday morning and my fingernails were filthy. And normally, Saturday night I'm rushing around trying to put a little bit of nail polish or something on them to cover up some of the dirt from the week that I can't get out that's just embedded in my nails. But, gardening is really a passion for me. And just being able to sit out there, especially in my kitchen garden, sitting in my kitchen garden, feel that warm soil between my fingers and just let the sun, shine down on me. Just soaking up a little bit of peace and serenity in my garden is probably one of my favorite places to be.
Outstanding. On behalf of all the listeners, we want to thank you, and we want to wish you and your family a fantastic growing season, and we're going to have you back, okay?
All right. Thank you so much, Dave. Have a great day.
You too.